You know what's funny? The things we take for granted, the little tools that just exist in our lives, often have the wildest origin stories. Like, what if I told you one of the most successful products ever, something you probably have within arm's reach right now, started as a complete, unmitigated disaster, a total flop of a failure that lingered in a lab, unwanted for years? We're talking billions of dollars, not just made, but birthed from a colossal screw-up. It's a product so simple, so deceptively obvious, that it's almost insulting to think it took years of accidental breakthroughs, corporate resistance, and sheer stubbornness to bring it into the world. Imagine a scientist working diligently on a problem, only to create something utterly useless, not just ineffective, but actively bad at its intended job. Most companies would shelf it, write it off, and move on. But this company? They took that failure, nurtured it through years of internal skepticism, and eventually watched it explode into a multi-billion-dollar global phenomenon. This isn't just a story about a product. It's a masterclass in how sometimes the most profound innovations don't come from finding a perfect solution, but from recognizing an unexpected opportunity hidden within a colossal mistake. What kind of mistake are we talking about? And how on earth do you sell a product whose defining feature is its lack of strength? All right, so picture this. It's 1968. The place is 3M, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, a company already legendary for Scotch tape and sandpaper. In one of their many labs, a scientist named Dr. Spencer Silver is trying to invent something revolutionary. He's tasked with developing a super strong adhesive, the kind of industrial glue that could hold parts of an airplane together or bind car panels with an unbreakable grip. He works, he experiments, he tinkers, and he succeeds in failing spectacularly. Instead of an unbreakable bond, Dr. Silver invents the exact opposite. His new adhesive was weird. It was sticky, yes, but only barely. You could press it onto something, and it would hold, but you could also peel it off with almost number effort. And here's the kicker. You could stick it back on, peel it off again, and repeat the process dozens of times. It left number residue. It was a reusable, low-tack, pressure-sensitive adhesive. In the world of industrial adhesives, where the goal was strength, Silver's invention was a joke. It was a solution without a problem, a product that literally couldn't do the one thing it was supposed to do, a classic manufacturing defect, except it wasn't a defect in a process. It was the entire product concept. So, what do you do with a glue that doesn't really glue? For years, that's exactly what Dr. Silver and 3M asked themselves. They pitched it internally. They tried to find uses for it, maybe to hold papers during a presentation without damaging them. Too niche, maybe to temporarily attach protective layers to products? Someone suggested using it to stick notes, but the concept just didn't click. It sat there, a bizarre chemical curiosity nobody could figure out how to monetize. A glue that barely stuck. Then, 6 years later, in 1974, another 3M scientist, Art Fry, stumbled upon a problem that only Silver's failure could solve. Fry was a churchgoer, a member of the choir. Every Sunday, he'd mark his hymns with little slips of paper, but those slips of paper kept falling out, sending him scrambling to find his place mid-song. He needed a bookmark that would stick, but not permanently, a bookmark he could move from hymn to hymn, week after week, without tearing the page. And then it hit him like a literal bolt from the blue, or maybe, more accurately, like a choir conductor pointing a stick. He remembered Spencer Silver's useless adhesive from an internal seminar. What if he coated the back of his paper bookmarks with that low-tack glue? It worked perfectly. He could stick it, peel it, re-stick it, number residue, number damage, number lost place. He immediately saw the broader implications, beyond just hymnals. This wasn't just a bookmark. This was a temporary information organizer. This was a way to communicate, to mark, to remind, without commitment. He called it press and peel. But even with a clear application, Fry had to fight for it. 3M, like many big corporations, had a culture that favored big, clear-cut wins. A temporary note product didn't fit the mold. It wasn't high-tech. It wasn't industrial. It felt flimsy. The initial market tests in 4 cities, Denver, Tampa, Richmond, and Tulsa, were actually a flop. Why? Because the sales reps couldn't properly explain it. They tried to sell it like any other office supply, highlighting features, not the feeling it created. It was like trying to sell a smartphone by describing its circuit board. People didn't get it. They didn't know they needed it because they didn't know what problem it solved. So Art Fry did something radical for the time. He started giving them away. He saturated Boise, Idaho, a classic test market, with samples. He didn't send them to purchasing managers. He went straight to the secretaries, the executives, the actual people who used paper every day. He put them directly into the hands of the end users. And what happened next was pure magic. People loved them. They started inventing uses on the fly, marking pages in reports, leaving notes on computer monitors, tagging documents. They began to call 3M, demanding where they could buy more of those little yellow notes. The defect of Silver's adhesive, its low tack, its reusability, its non-damaging nature, was no longer a defect. It was the entire point. This wasn't super glue. It was super gentle glue. It allowed for fluid, informal communication in a world that was becoming increasingly complex and fast-paced. Instead of shouting across an office or sending a formal memo, you could leave a little yellow note. It was personal, temporary, and effective. It was a product that didn't just do something. It changed how people worked and how they thought. Think about the sheer counterintuitiveness of that. In an age of bigger, faster, stronger, 3M found a multi-billion-dollar market in something smaller, slower, and weaker. The very attribute that made Spencer Silver's invention a failure in 1968 made it a resounding success by 1980. The first full launch under the name Post-it Notes in 1980 was an immediate, unqualified success. The product wasn't just useful. It was addictive. Once you started using them, you couldn't imagine life without them. It became the ultimate informal communication tool, the ultimate temporary organizer. And it wasn't just offices. Think of architects marking blueprints, students highlighting passages, chefs noting recipes, parents leaving messages for their kids. The uses were endless because the principle was so universal. The need for temporary, flexible information. 3M even figured out how to dye the paper, a distinctive canary yellow, because early tests showed yellow was the most visually appealing and easy to spot color. That iconic yellow isn't accidental. It's a deliberate design choice that became synonymous with the brand. Today, Post-it notes are a quiet giant for 3M, generating hundreds of millions, if not billions, of dollars in revenue every single year. They're sold in over 150 countries. The story isn't just about a sticky note. It's a profound lesson in innovation. It's about serendipity, yes, but more importantly, it's about persistent curiosity and the courage to challenge established ideas of what constitutes failure. What if we stopped viewing mistakes as dead ends and started seeing them as unexplored territories? What if the things that don't work for their intended purpose actually hold the key to entirely new, unimagined uses? Spencer Silver's low-tack adhesive wasn't a failure. It was a property waiting for a problem. And Art Fry, with his choir hymnals, was just the first to truly understand that problem. The next time you peel off one of those little yellow squares, remember it's not just a note. It's a monument to the idea that sometimes the greatest successes are born when you look at a failure, not with disappointment, but with an open mind, and ask, what else could this be good for? What mistake in your life, right now, might actually be your next billion-dollar idea, just waiting for the right problem?